Welcome to the ChicoBag Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Keller, and today we're exploring holistic wellness, mindful living, and the connection between sustainability and personal health with Alexandra Todaro. She's also known as Sasha. She's a registered dietitian, certified diabetes care and education specialist, a Reiki master, certified meditation instructor with over 20 years of experience. She integrates nutrition, movement, stress management, energy medicine to help individuals and communities live healthier, more balanced lives. And in this episode, we're going to discuss how nutrition and mindfulness intersect with sustainability, the role of energy medicine and overall well-being, and practical steps we can all take to live healthier, more conscious lives. Let's get started. Welcome, Sasha.
Thank you, Andy. Pleasure to be here.
So first of all, part of your practice is you teach mindfulness. What is mindfulness?
Mindfulness is simply being aware of what's happening right now in this moment without trying to change it. And so just enjoying the pleasant when it arises without holding on to it when it changes, because it will change. And then being with any unpleasant feelings as they arise and knowing that that's going to change too.
So what's the difference between mindfulness and meditation?
Right. They're really, I think, one supports the other, because in the meditation style that I practice, over 2,500 years old, it's called shamatha. You're just sitting and feeling your breath. Eyes are not even closed. You focus on something and you feel the sensations of breath in your body. And when a thought arises, you simply say to yourself the word thinking and let it go. So that practice, because the time we're meditating, I decided I'm going to focus on feeling breath in my body. And it strengthens. To me, it's linked with mindfulness, because in meditation, I choose to pay attention to my breath, how it feels in my body. And mindfulness, I think of meditation as like I'm strengthening that muscle of being able to focus. Right now, it's time to feel the breath. And now that can expand to other times of day. It's mindful eating. Oh, let me give thanks first for this food. Let me maybe tune in. Am I really hungry? Am I eating because I'm bored and I always eat at 8 o'clock at night? Am I angry? Am I stuffing? I have a saying, don't stuff your face, face your stuff. Can we
like
tune
that.
in? Thank you. I'll send you a sticker if you like. And, but can I tune in, right? It's a way also of grounding anyway, just to say throughout the day, where am I? What am I doing? Who am I with? How do I feel? So in general, we are not so good at feeling, naming a feeling. And that's, I think mindfulness is about, like meditation, like being real. Like, this is what is. And, this crazy chaos in the world, and, anxiety is rampant everywhere. I rarely hear a person who's not anxious. But maybe I can take some solace in this idea that, people have been feeling this way for centuries, and what can I do about it? I'm going to choose to believe in that idea of peace in oneself, peace in the world. So I see my job, your job. We're just trying to make ourselves peaceful.
Yeah.
My job as a teacher to show people maybe how it's not so hard. And every meal is a new beginning, right? If people think, it's so hard to eat healthy, then maybe it is. But I'm going to say, to me, that's the biggest misconception about eating to promote health, is that it's difficult. I don't think it is,
There's always like, I'll start on Monday, I'll start eating better on Monday, I'm going to start my diet. So what's the difference between like a diet and mindful eating?
Who likes diets? No, diet is really, this is a lifestyle. You're choosing a lifestyle of health. It's exciting. And starting on Monday, look, none of us is promised Monday. So the Buddha said, wake up. You have to wake up. Look, I live with a beloved, wonderful man, and he'll say things like, it's my birthday. We go away on his birthday, and No, you have to wake up to this idea that, like Andy, every day is your birthday. Every day. And this is wonderful news. But, what helps, in my little opinion here, what helps us feed the self-nurturing is, again, meditation. So it's a little bit like the secret sauce. I don't want to be like, oh, it's a panacea, but I know from being a registered dietitian over 20 years, what prevents people from taking good care of themselves is something called poor self-nurturing. And that's the big step to get to, how do we get to strong self-nurturing? So I call it poor self-nurturing. Someone else might call it, a physician, for example, might call it poor compliance on the part of the patient. But again, they're not listening to our advice. And again, it's because in their mind, they have that attitude, oh, I'll start Monday. This doesn't matter. But what if it's like, Cher in Moonstruck, where she slaps Nicolas Cage and says, snap out of it. Like, wake up. This is it. How are you going to be? If this is your last days? No, this is great stuff, because if I'm fully present when I'm eating, I give thanks. I look at the colors and the textures and I say, oh, 3 colors. How can I make it 4? How can I add another color? Maybe I'm just going to focus on my fiber and feed the microbiome, but I'm adding meaning to my life if I'm really present.
Yeah. So the idea of being present, I am familiar with this. I've done some meditation, and a lot of times in our head, we're either in the future or we're in the past. So being in the present really means don't think about stuff in the future. Don't think about things in the past, right? It means think about what's right in front of you. Is that, did I get it right?
You got it right. Be here now.
So be here now. So when you're eating, it's not thinking about other things, right? It's thinking about eating.
Right. And you can help foster that by not eating with the television on, or if you do it every night, start with one night, you turn it off. Right. But obviously it sounds very logical. If we were eating with the television on, we might overeat.
Yeah.
We might just,
the classic example is sitting down watching TV with a bag of potato chips.
Right.
Right. All of a sudden.
Yes. I do that sometimes.
Yeah. You got the whole bag and they're delicious and they're, making all the bells go off in my head, and I'm watching and I don't even realize how much I'm eating. And then all of a sudden they're gone.
They're gone. Well, I answer to Mrs. Potato Head, Andy. It's my favorite food. But my go-to, what I do now we're coming into this time of the year when I like to go sailing. So I limit potato chips to going on the sailboat. So I know I'm going to share them with other people. And what I put in my house, because that's a principle, whatever you bring in your house, that's what you're going to consume, right? So let me buy a nice bag of those delicious mandarin oranges, like a clementine. And I can eat 2 or 3. There's nothing to feel bad about. Everybody should have at least one citrus food a day. So it's about, for somebody, it might be putting into a bowl is a good thing, but what's to stop me from getting up and getting another bowl? That's just me. So I'd rather say nighttime, after dinner snacking is going to be, to me, like fruit, or let me just have water, make a cup of tea. What else can I do? I dare you. Let's be courageous here and let's try something different. Just one night tonight,
I've tried that. I've tried tea and, instead of a dessert or a snack. And I got to say, it does satisfy the craving, to have a cup of tea and, and then if I'm still like having a craving after the tea, then okay. But a lot of times my craving's over with that cup of tea. So
right, you could say I'll have the cookie after, but if I tell you one quick story, to come back to that M word, meditation, a friend of mine, Rima, was going to a local library meditation, and she had a habit of eating at night. And she told me that when she went to this meditation program and she got home and she, on on her, agenda was like time for a snack, tea and cookies, I don't know, cheese and crackers. And she really paused, or she felt like, no, I don't really want that. And I don't really want that. And what I took from that was, because she sat and like kind of quote fed her invisible part of herself, she like got, she just had some quiet time with herself, shut the brain down a little, quieted it a little bit. Then she wasn't on that automatic, I have to stuff my face.
Yeah, she faced her stuff so she doesn't have to stuff her face.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's more than just mindfulness and eating healthy. There's a link between this to chronic disease. Tell us about what lifestyle changes prevent chronic disease.
Okay, sure, that'd be my pleasure. What comes to mind for me are those principles of lifestyle medicine. So there's a nice resource for people called ACLM.org, American College of Lifestyle Medicine. So they offer things like, to somebody like me, to get certified in a course on teaching people how to actually put your type 2 diabetes into remission. Many people don't know about that. But basically, the 6 pillars of this are a whole foods, plant-based diet, moving your body, so physical activity. The big surprise is it's every day. Okay, so every day we should move, and working up to an optimal amount of 45 minutes a day. Stress management. How do we relax? We'll talk about that in a minute. Andy, you'll tell us how you relax. And avoiding drugs and alcohol vices, right? So one way, when we're anxious and we want to soothe ourselves, can we move more to soothing behaviors that actually promote health versus behaviors that, promote disease or don't do anything really good for the body?
Yeah,
Getting
so
enough, and last 2 are sleep, getting enough sleep, and having social connections, and nurturing maybe a spiritual life or practice.
Sure. So, the idea of vices, right? So what is the definition? Like, how do you know that something is becoming a vice versus, occasional indulgence?
Great question. How do you know? Well, I mean, all of these things have the potential. This is what I've read, that, to have a glass of wine to relax, shopping, gambling, right? Maybe you buy a scratch off once a year, or people buy that for their, so all of these things that could be special event, have the ability to become, and I see it as, we have to recognize that, what are we trying to do here? Why are we reaching out for a cigarette or some other substances, alcohol, shopping, gambling, right? Sex, all these addictions, potentially, people are trying to soothe themselves. So when does it get, maybe, like, a lot of people don't want to own up to the fact that their sleep is disturbed because they're drinking alcohol every night. I find people very reluctant to, it's something else. But alcohol, you might fall asleep right away, maybe, but it's going to wake you up in the middle of the night. So I think you have to pay, the answer again, I hate to be a broken record, but you have to pay attention, like, how is your life quality, getting real with, if you have an idea that maybe something, I'm doing this too much, that's probably the truth.
Yeah. So, the idea of being present and maybe feeling what you're feeling and acknowledging the feeling that's coming up. Like, gosh, I feel really stressed out right now. Like, I really want to get an ice cream, And then I know when this happens for me, having a little background in meditation, I know that that's just a thought that's crossing my mind, and I don't have to grab onto it. And I could acknowledge that, the person or the inside of me who's saying that to me, that's the the little boy that, would eat ice cream, to feel better because that's what my mom would give me, or something like that. Anytime I was upset, oh, here's some ice cream, honey, and then I associated that with feeling better. And now I'm eating ice cream, and I can acknowledge
Mm-hmm.
that, that was something that worked for you for a long time. And, I hear that that's a great idea. And however, I'm going to go for a walk instead, and I'll
Mm-hmm.
come back to you. Maybe we'll have some ice cream later.
Or let's walk to get some ice cream.
Yes.
We have so many choices. This is the thing. We don't have to put ourselves in a box. I can delay the ice cream. I can first eat the clementine and see if that's, if I have to eat, if I decided, but I don't have to. Like, I think it's freedom or progress to say, I'm just going to have some ice cream. Me, wanting to promote health would encourage you to choose a non-dairy ice cream. So it's still going to be full of sugar, still going to taste delicious, but let me choose a non-dairy ice cream. And if I'm having ice cream, whatever I'm having, right? Even if I'm eating something that we think is not healthful, I'm going to tell you, just eat it mindfully. That's the nice advice of Susan Albers. She's a psychologist who makes her whole living talking about mindful eating and emotional eating, which is so common.
So I've heard you say, or, Hari Hachi Bu. What does that mean?
Hari Hachi Bu, oh no, it's downstairs. I learned that from this book called Hungry Planet. Beautiful book. Have you heard of that one?
No.
Some author, they did another one too with people's homes, but they photographed people all over the world with their food for a week. They asked them to, be photographed with that. And then they also took pictures of them gathering the food. So if they're like fishing or they're in the supermarket, and in that book, when it came to Japan, I learned that this is a cultural philosophy with food, and it means eat until you're 80% full. Okay, so another part of Japanese culture is that they eat a little bit of a lot of different things at a meal. If you think of a bento box, there could be 10 things going on there. It's not just cheeseburger, french fries, shake, or a dinner of meat and potatoes, maybe a sliver of some peas on a plate, but it's not 2 or 3 things making up a meal.
Yeah.
So Hari Hachi Bu, we won't have visual but I said it to a Japanese restaurant owner in town. His name is Hide. And when I said to Hide, I greet him with Hari Hachi Bu. And he said, eat to here, not to here. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great philosophy. Japanese people are, very healthy as a population. In the United States, we have giant portion sizes, and it's
supersized meal,
supersized.
All you could eat.
Of course,
buffet.
Eat everything on your plate. It was pounded into me when I was a kid. I don't want to let food go to waste. And then
don't do that to children. Everybody, don't do that. Kids are really good at self-regulating. So if you have them, we have those nice things called children. Your job is just say dinner time and keep putting stuff out there. And the child's job is to say how much they're going to eat. And even if they're going to eat, believe it or not, they're really good at practicing stopping when they've had enough.
So let's talk about that one. So if your child sits down and they don't want to eat, that's okay?
That's supposed to be okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Because
and that's not my opinion. That's Ellen Satter. That's I'm not a pediatric specialist, but I know who is, and I know what she says, and that's their job. You keep, and don't make yourself crazy, parents. Don't say to a child, don't get into the habit of, oh, what would you like for dinner? You say, would you like a peanut butter and jelly, or would you like some minestrone soup? You give a choice, but you don't just put it out there, anything.
Yeah. So if in 2 hours before bed they're hungry, they still have the choice between minestrone and PB&J, right?
Yes, I would say so.
Yeah, I would think so too.
Don't want them to go to bed hungry.
No, and you don't want them just to fill up on popcorn or a snack instead of dinner, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, that's interesting. I have a child, so that resonates. We've had this discussion where oh, you got to eat something. It's dinner time.
Right.
So it's good to know.
Maybe let them play with their food. I don't know how old they are, but there's that wonderful book, Bread and Jam for Francis. Remember that one?
I haven't heard that one. No.
Oh, that's an oldie classic. And it was about this little bear named Francis. And so often children get into the food jag where they just want to eat the same thing for days. And that was Francis, the little bear, is into bread and jam. But then one day, it finally, she came out of it and she said, hey, how come I don't get to try that thing? So your job is just to keep putting different things out there. But just say, hey, be home at 6 for dinner, whatever time dinner is.
Yeah.
And, chances are they're going to be hungry at least 3 times a day. I mean, that's a good practice.
Yeah.
Children, you and I are probably good eating 3 meals a day, maybe a snack or 2, maybe. But kids, are better served by eating definitely a couple of snacks a day.
Yeah. Yeah, I always say, your taste buds are always changing. So, try it again. You might like it this time. That's all we ask for is just try something.
I just wanted to also talk about food waste.
Yeah, let's talk about food waste.
Because so I'm always cleaning. I'm a very strong inner librarian. And I found this thing here that's from 2018. Okay. So probably things got worse. But in 2018, globally, we throw away about 1/3 of the food we grow, about 1.3 billion tons per year.
That's a lot. That's a big piece of pie.
That's hard to 1.3 billion tons. Well, that makes me think of the 10 billion animals that are slaughtered for food.
Because that includes animals, right?
No. This is
just
talking about produce, like food that we grow.
So that's just produce.
Animals, the number is 10 billion animals are slaughtered every year for food.
10 billion.
Yeah.
And to think that any of those animals are going to waste after they gave their life is really a sad situation.
Yes, it's horrible. People want to look the other way, but that doesn't help ease the suffering. If we look at Diet for a New America, have you heard of that one?
I haven't heard of this one. These are all new.
Oh, John Robbins, he's from the Baskin Robbins family of ice cream, and he couldn't go into that. I mean, this is an old book. Now his son, Ocean Robbins, is also followed in the footsteps. But this book, my book here, is growing yellow from age. This book is from 1987. And, when we look at to produce a day's food for one meat eater takes over 4,000 gallons of water.
You're saying one meat eater, the food for one meat eater for one day is 4,000 gallons of water?
Let's see if it's, it takes 100 times more water to produce a pound of meat as it does to produce a pound of wheat. I don't know if this is for a year.
Okay.
Wait.
But the
oh,
bottom,
no, sorry. This is in a month. To produce a single pound of meat takes an average of 2,500 gallons of water.
2,500
I think we're talking for the whole, to get that meat to the table, so to speak.
Yeah. So bottom line is meat
it's wasteful.
Well, it takes a lot more water and resources. Grain.
We waste
fertilizers,
90%.
pesticides, right?
We're by cycling grain through livestock, we not only waste 90% of protein, and we waste 96% of the calories, 100% of the fiber, 100% of carbs. So it's like the middleman. You make, why not just feed? This guy, a wonderful man, Philip Wolin, he said, we have enough food in the world to feed everybody's need, but not the greed. And it's still, if I look in this China study book, or one of these books, they talk about, cutting down the rainforest, right? It just was in the headline last week that they're cutting down more rainforests, where the acai berries come from to, make land to feed cattle.
For
So
cattle
it's
grazing.
just going on and on and on. But wait, this stuff is not promoting health. Obviously, it's not compassionate, and it's harming the environment. So
I mean, those are some compelling reasons to eat less meat, and I don't think there's a debate out there that eating a plant-based diet is better for the environment. I know there's a lot of fear around, nutritional needs. Like, how can you meet all of your nutritional needs on a plant-based diet? And how do you make it delicious? So I know you are vegan. So what are your tips and tricks to, live the good life?
oh yeah, I mean, I love taking people to, my friends like my food, but I recently took my brother and sister-in-law to a vegan restaurant in Florida. And I love my brother-in-law's review was 2 words. He said, "This was shockingly good." He liked everything. And then on their way to the airport home, we sent them to another place, and they loved that too. So first, if we get clear with what's our motivation, why do we want to try this? Well, because I value kindness and compassion. I care about the planet I'm going to leave to my children. I want it to be healthy. And most people care about their health, right? To promote health. So I like to quote, I don't know, did you get to see that movie I recommended to you called The Game Changers?
Not yet.
The
No, but it's on
documentary.
my list.
All right, so that was about athletes who go vegan. And in that film, the famous cardiologist Dean Ornish says, it's not one diet that promotes healthy blood pressure and healthy body weight, can reverse diabetes and can reverse heart disease and deter many, many types of cancer. He says it's the same diet. I love that quote. It's a whole foods, plant-based diet. So this myth, and there's numerous books, Proteinaholic, even vegetarians exceed their protein needs. Okay, I'll just tell everybody, whatever you weigh, you take your weight and divide by 2.2. You got your weight in kilograms, and then you just multiply that number times 0.8. Okay, and you could go up to 1, a range of 0.8 to 1. That's how many grams of protein you need in a day, and more is not better. More is just more.
Interesting. So, I mean, 0.8 is pretty close to 1, right? And
Yeah.
if you know your weight in kilograms, that's how many grams?
2.2. So like 150 pounds would be 68 kilograms.
Yeah.
And so
And
if we multiply it by the 0.8, it'll be closer to 60 than 70, right? It'll be a little, but I've heard it said that when they came up with that 0.8, maybe that was even overestimating it a little bit. But I know it's not hard, right?
how do you get protein rich diet, or enough protein with a vegan diet?
It's not. I eat food. In the morning I might wake up and have some almond butter, cashew butter, sunflower seed butter on a couple of Wassa crackers. Some days I have heritage flakes with some berries. I want to tell everyone, when you buy your berries, you don't want them to go bad. Take them out of the plastic container when you get home and put them in a glass container. And don't rinse them till just before you're going to eat them. Okay, very important. Don't want to throw away your berries.
Is that to keep the air out, or what's the?
It enhances longevity. It's miraculous how they won't get fuzzy in a few days if by some chance. But you should be eating a serving of berries every day, according to the wonderful Dr. Michael Greger, nutritionfacts.org, great resource. If I felt, it doesn't happen often, but if I felt like I wanted scrambled eggs, I could go buy a make-believe scrambled egg made out of mung beans and scrambled eggs. My favorite, again, it's not maybe once a month, but if I get, there's a product I love called My Bacon, and it's just made out of mushroom. It's made of mycelium. So the point is, there's a substitute for, if you have favorite foods like bacon or whatever, you won't feel deprived. And why not give yourself a chance to see how good the food tastes when you're aligning your value for kindness and compassion and health by knowing this meal here is cruelty free. Why won't I try it? Why am I just, that's like the pet peeve. That's like up there with Martin Luther King. I have a dream that one day people aren't going to be like, bacon tastes good. No, pigs want to live their life, and the way we treat a pig, if you think it's not okay to treat a dog that way, you have to get real and say, why, are you willing to slaughter that pig for that bacon? Try my bacon. I don't get paid by them, but you got to try this stuff. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you could just get a vegan recipe book. You could reach out to me. I'll send you my favorites. Chickpea mash instead of tuna fish. I mash up chickpeas.
Yep.
Dice up little carrots, celery, a little pickle in there is nice. Sometimes radishes, parsley. You can make it as veggie heavy or not as you like. Yep. But that's a really great protein salad that could be for breakfast or lunch. I just had my breakfast today. It was kind of a salad. So I had Boston, soft lettuce with arugula, and I had both chickpeas and some lentils in there today. And then I threw in some sunflower seeds. Yeah. But, we have veggie burgers. We have, a chicken patty. But basically beans and nuts are two of the highest proteins. Tofu, tempeh.
So what advice do you have? So, Americans love meat, like all across the world, meat, fish, eggs is, a daily part of people's diet. Mm-hmm. Not everyone's ready to go vegan. What's your advice to people that want to eat healthier, want to do better for the planet, but don't want to go to that extreme?
Okay. Well, I would say let's start with Meatless Monday. Yeah. You can join that movement. So I feel like as a healthcare provider, when I meet with people, I always want to start with you. Where are you at now? So if you tell me, Sasha, already, once a week, I have a dinner without an animal. So I'll say, okay, great. Let's make it 2. Yeah. Okay. Most people I encounter will tell me of the 7 days a week, 5 nights they have chicken. 1 night is beef. If they don't eat beef, that 1 night might be fish, but the other night is, pork, another animal. It's like status, right? But again, maybe I will educate myself more because, the rest of my family doesn't eat like me. But, for me, it was about learning how, food is really prepared. I think one of the best things we can do maybe this summer is here. Everybody plant something, grow some own food. If you don't have the area, you can just grow in a pot. You can grow some cucumbers or tomatoes. I'm lucky enough we have a community garden, so I have a plot. But growing your own food is a great way to really feel connected to it. And then you don't have to, make that choice in the supermarket. I'm always looking for the cucumbers that aren't wrapped in plastic. That can sometimes be hard, right? I see you have a nice artwork behind you.
Yep, all the plastic bags. I got a big pile of plastic bags behind me. That's what the average American uses in plastic bags. So when you go to the grocery store, a lot of produce these days is wrapped in plastic. So growing your own is certainly part of the solution. Farmers market is another example. Mm-hmm. I like the idea of Meatless Mondays. I was raised Catholic, so on Fridays,
you have Friday
coming up to Easter. It was part of a spiritual practice to not eat meat. On Fridays.
About also if you're making do you do Taco Tuesday at your house ever or something like that?
We have done Taco Tuesday, and and my practice is I do eat meat and eggs. However, we've shifted to Michael Pollan said this is instead of making meat the main dish, meat is the side dish. So you still can enjoy some meat, but the main dish is you could. One of my favorites is taking cauliflower and cutting it into steaks.
And grilling.
Having a cauliflower steak and putting good seasoning on it is very satisfying.
And portobello mushrooms, that can really fool you into a very meat-like flavor.
Yeah, I mean it's has the texture and the you can have the right seasonings to give it that umami full-bodied flavor that
Mm-hmm.
people like. So that's another way, at least in my life, where, you don't, wherever you are on the spectrum, you can make daily choices.
Yeah, just a little more color on the plate. They talk about putting the protein, or in this case, maybe an animal food, on a quarter of the plate. Half the plate is vegetable, a quarter is your potatoes or rice. And then you could still have more variety, all the soup and salad you want, but 3/4 of it is plant-based.
Yeah.
That will be, you're eating more toward promoting health.
Thank you, Sasha, so much for being on the show, and appreciate your time and energy. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you for your
All right.
energy. Bye, Andy.